Paul Wittenberger. He is an innovative filmmaker. He's an artist. He's an activist born in Michigan before spending his early childhood in war-torn West African nation of Liberia. After completing his early education, returned to the States where he studied film at the renowned Full Sail University. In 2010, Paul partnered with, hold on just one second. All right, I have a massive glitch going on there. Sorry about that. He partnered with G. Edward Griffin to produce a groundbreaking documentary to bring the subject of geothermal engineering, better known as, of course, chemtrails, to the forefront. What in the world are they spraying? Followed in the fall of 2010, rising to great success and equal controversy. His second feature-length documentary released in 2012 was The Great Culling, Our Water. Huge documentary. We've seen that. Late 2015, he produced Fluoride, Poison to Tap, which deals with water fluoridation and its health effects. He currently resides in Delton, Michigan, where he works on the most prominent documentary of his career at one of the most important times, as I'm describing, in, I would say, all of human history. But Paul, I apologize for the minor technical glitches we had there, and I welcome you to the Pete Santilli Show at a very momentous occasion. Yet another great documentary. Thank you for joining me today. We're very honored to have you on.
I appreciate that, Pete. Yeah, this series, COVID Land, is definitely the most important work I've ever done. And that's why I wanted to do this interview today. And I appreciate you having me on the show, because I want to get the word out about this documentary series that we partnered with Alex Jones to produce, and help get the word out about it.
You know, if you don't mind commenting, I mean, obviously working with G. Edward Griffin, his mark in the truth revolution, of course, is immeasurable. I mean, you just can't, you can't describe exactly how impactful his work has been. Alex Jones, as well, if you look at it, no matter how much, criticism, obviously the cabal just does not like what he's put out, but I've listened to him for, of the 8 years he's been broadcasting. His documentaries that he's put out have been epic, have they not? I mean, look at his body of work.
Right. Yeah. G. Edward Griffin is just an amazing man. And so when I had the opportunity to work with them for, I think, 3 films, we worked with them. It was just a great experience. And so he's definitely a supporter of this work too. And hopefully he's going to get, sell this movie as well.
Outstanding. What can you tell us about what inspired Alex Jones to get back into the fray? You were part of that. If you don't mind sharing some of the inside baseball per se.
Right. Well, I got an interview with him, and it went really well. And so I ended up just asking him if he wanted to be a part of it. And I showed him, some of the footage. I showed him all the different people we interviewed, because for your listeners, so they understand a little bit more about this series, we interviewed 50 different people from around the United States on various topics of the COVID debacle. And so we interviewed tons of different great guests. And so it turned out amazing. And so I showed it to him, and he agreed to partner with us. And so that was huge, because, as you know, censorship is out of control right now. And so what better place to release this than InfoWars?
Saying that censorship is out of control is almost an understatement. I think right. I actually opened up today's show because I watched them do this, and I do want to have this conversation because it has everything to do with distribution of this important documentary. What do we do to get around this censorship? Well, let's take a look at what they did during the Iranian Revolution. I watched them at the time. I was involved with big tech, with Twitter. I was an early adopter. technically, they had to learn how people communicated, assembled, and they had to learn how to do that by studying them like a bunch of lab rats in order to be able to cut them off and still leave the internet on. They've been studying this for quite some time. Since then, they've been setting up these algorithms to be able to do that on an automated basis. Now, I think that they're getting ready. We're seeing the internet shutdowns just today. If they shut down Facebook, they're watching. I do believe this. They want to watch to see where they gravitate to. When Facebook shuts down and there's a big internet outage, a YouTube, a Facebook, where's everyone going to go? And to track them to these outer peripheries. Why? Because ultimately, some big things are going to happen, sir. I really believe that. You know what they're getting ready to do. Look at what they did with the release of this virus. The amount of psyop and mind control to get everybody conditioned to accept this incremental thing. Don't you agree? Do you sense that? And knowing what you know, and you've covered very important documentaries, these are not good people that are planning through this stuff, and they have control over the technology to shut down the internet. That's not over sensationalizing, is it?
Yeah, I mean, people don't really realize that they have total control of everything we see. And that was one of the big challenges of making this film, is finding all the clips that I knew existed, but they just didn't exist. And so, we had a team of 4 people working full time, just trying to, dig up these old clips that have been completely censored and wiped off the web. And so, this film is really a time capsule of what transpired over the past year and a half. And that's why I think it's so important.
Did you have a tough time grabbing clips that you knew were there? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because you would remember seeing something, and then you'd go back, look for it 3 months later, and it was gone. And so Google has just made it impossible to search things. So you can't do just keyword searches like you used to. You have to go around. You have to go to alternative sites, look up, where they got from, find a date of when it was recorded, and then go back and search via date and stuff like that. That's usually how you had the best results.
I made it a habit recently to start downloading important clips and videos, just automatically stripping it from the internet and sticking it into our archives. If it's a significant statement, if it's something stupid by Fauci or whatever it is, there's a bunch of stuff that's out there. Just strip it, get it off the internet. That's what I've been doing, probably for the better part of the past 6 to 8 months. And I cannot tell you how many times I'll go back and cross-check to see if something was up there, and they'll wipe it off the internet completely. Because I think as they're molding and shaping this narrative, and this is what I want to get to. You've watched this in your work, Paul. You're not just a filmmaker. Would you say that activism drives your work, and the harm that is being done to humanity by whoever these people are behind the scenes, that's what's driving and with tremendous passion and delivering these messages to the entire world, for that matter, isn't it? Right.
Yeah, and I believe this event is the most significant event that's ever happened in the history of America, if not the world. And, this event not only affected America, but it did affect the world. And so what event has led to global governance more than this event? And so that's why, I have been extremely passionate about this. Ever since back in March of 2020, we made a short film outlining what they said they wanted to achieve from this virus. And they have achieved literally everything they talked about in a year and a half. And, when we put out that short film back in March of 2020, people thought we were crazy. Like, this is, this is not happening. They're not going to force vaccinate Americans. That would never happen. But, it is happening now. So it is a serious.
Remember, not too long ago, and everyone can, no matter who you are politically, whether you like Trump or dislike, it doesn't even matter. We as individuals were gripped in fear, but we were told, hey, this is a bioweapon. Shoot, I was in the Marine Corps. I'm familiar with bioweapons. That was my My job was aviation weapons. I understood what a bioweapon can do. And I was genuinely fearful of how this thing was going to spread. And I was watching it. And then we're hearing 14 days to flatten the curve. Look at how far we've come incrementally. You've just watched them psyop us. They got us all together to do this 14 days to flatten the curve. And I think they just looked at us and laughed and said, wow, this is going to be easy. Everyone's piling on here. Let's take them through the next phase. But this has happened incrementally up to this point, hasn't it?
Right.
Slow cook.
Yeah, it's like a frog in boiling water. You know, they just slowly conditioned us to do all these things. And now, you know, when you walk into a store, you're the only one that doesn't have a mask on. And so it's like, I never would have figured they would have got such a large percentage of the population just go along with this without asking any questions. And they have by far the majority of the population just doing whatever they say. And so I feel like they even were like, whoa, there's no resistance. I mean, to any of the shutdowns, none of the churches cared. No one, everyone just shut down.
I don't know if you've gone, well, I'm going to touch on it because we could spend a lot of time and spin off into the weeds. But I know that you have researched deeply geothermal engineering or chemtrails. And did you get to the point where you recognized that what they were spraying was not just aluminum and barium? Did your research take you to the point to where they started spraying nanoparticulates?
Right.
Did you learn about that?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
The nanoparticulates that they were spraying, because the aluminum and barium, our bodies would just expel it. It's a foreign object, right? Now these nanoparticulates they've been developing, isn't it amazing how it's showing up in these vaccines? And Qualcomm has patents, and they can energize these things, through the graphene oxide. Have you dug into what these vaccines contain?
Right. And graphene oxide, that's one of the things that we're going into quite significantly in this series. And just so your audience knows, the series is laid out in 5 parts. So the first part is called the lockdown. So basically just kind of leads you up till today and just kind of shows how it affected the businesses, how it affected the elderly, and just how it affected us in general. The part 2 is called the mask, and it goes over the masks. And the part 3 is called the shot. That's where we go heavily into, just totally destroying the vaccines. And then part 4 is called the propaganda. And then part 5 is the Great Reset. So we go through every part of this and definitely do go into graphene oxide and show, there's a lot of sketchy things that are happening with this vaccine.
Oh, yeah. And most importantly, people need to get educated on what's happening. And they're not going to get educated by turning on the TV or going on the internet. That is an absolute given. Back to my point earlier, why are we promoting so heavily among us, we the people, in independent media, as we always have? Really, if you look at InfoWars and what InfoWars has done, G. Edward Griffin, has been censored himself for decades. He's always put out the truth, of course. But what do? I call it the bucket brigade fashion. We, the people, pass this information. This right here is the new way of passing information on. It's kind of like the old printing press. Once you printed that paper and it got passed out, obviously distribution isn't as quick, but it was solid. It couldn't be, the newspapers couldn't be deleted. A magazine in text couldn't be deleted. We have to share this and do so in a bucket brigade fashion. This is the means of distribution for COVID land, all 5, to educate all humanity worldwide, is it not?
Right. And, I remember when I was a kid, when the Clinton Chronicles came out, my grandpa had a VHS that someone sent him in the mail. And he had this VHS that he was just duplicating and sending it to all of his friends. That's just kind of how they did things back then. And, we have got to a point where we have to go back to that and get physical copies of things and pass it to people. So, that's why we encourage people to get a copy of this movie, burn it, and send it off to your friends and family, because this will wake people up. And, especially with the shot episode 3 that's coming out. I mean, you're not going to watch that episode and then go get the vaccine after it. I mean, it has like at least a 30-minute section in that episode where it just shows injury after injury after injury of people taking the shot, totally normal person. They're seizing. And it's like, this is obviously a result of this vaccine. And so no rational person would watch that episode and go get this shot. So that's why, this series is so important, because it is a time capsule. We are archiving everything that's happening, and we are putting it all in a nice condensed version to get out to people to wake up your grandma, because that's who we want to wake up. We're not just talking to the conspiracy theory, crowd, even though we are, we're trying to definitely target them, but we're trying to wake up grandma. We're trying to wake up mom, because we don't want them to be injured. We don't want them to go take the shot.
Paul,
and so,
Paul,
I think that's one of the good things about this series.
Paul, I was one of those individuals that when I was suit and tie, corporate America, Fox News guy, and I landed on the Alex Jones show back in 1999, and I found out about, 9/11 was an inside job. And I'm like, Alex Jones, that's what? He's a kook pot. I just couldn't even fathom what he was talking about. But he wouldn't relent. He said, the information's out there. It's right in front of us. You need to go look at it. It's being censored. I'm here to tell you how to do your own research. Don't even believe me. So I've come awake myself. I wouldn't even be in independent media if it weren't for Alex Jones. The documentaries that you've put out in Michigan with the water. I mean, the chemtrail documentaries, all the information that you've put out provides us with what we need to come awake to the realities of the world that we live in. And some people are behind the scenes. I want to get your opinion here. I think you can give us a 50,000-foot view. Who are these people that are wanting to do such terrible things to humans? Who do you think they are?
Right. Well, I don't know if we really know, because, the people that they kind of front as the people behind this, like Bill Gates, and, I just don't, they're more like the fall men, it seems like, so I don't really know, but, there's definitely a nefarious thing that's happening right now. And, I'm a Christian, so I believe, it's spiritual. Like, it's a spiritual problem that's happening right now.
You know what? And as Christians, myself, yourself, they call us conspiracy theorists because, we have a different set of goggles on. Even in the scriptures, in Matthew, the parables, once you're ready to receive the truth and the veil is lifted, you can just see the lies just right in front of you. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to worship your God of the government. I'm not going to go to your one world religion. But we as Christians, not that we're susceptible to conspiracy theories, but the veil has been lifted for us and we can see the truth right in front of us. Isn't it true?
Right. And, I think all this comes back to personal choice. If you want to take the shot, take the shot. Just don't force me to take it. Or if you want to wear the mask, go ahead, but don't force me to take it. That's where I feel like they're crossing the line and they're becoming this just authoritarian, just nightmare. And I just don't see it going back to normal.
No, I want to prompt you because, and get your opinion, of course. Do you think that this incremental, slow cooking, the boiling frog style to the global reset is the pretext to what they're going to do with the climate change crisis? Do you think this is the stepping stone to that? Is that going to be your next set of documentaries in the coming years?
Well, it seems like they're trying to tie in global warming with the whole COVID. I read it. I don't know if you've heard of the book by Klaus Schwab, The Great Reset. But in that book, he's talking about COVID and how they're going to use this crisis, to create a reset. And, global warming is one of the big topics in that book where they talk about climate change, being a part of this whole COVID debacle. So they're obviously using climate to further that world government.
In fact, in most cases, they telegraph exactly what their intentions are. That's another thing. Is it part of a code? Actually, if you're a dot connector like me, you can put together bits and pieces from the people at the World Economic Forum, at the Bilderberg Group. You start connecting everything and read, for instance, the Rio de Janeiro conference with Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, now Agenda 2030. It's written in their documentation. The UN is right up front about it. Even their Luciferianism is documented. I don't know if you're going to ever dig into that, but the UN, agenda under, their Lucius Trust. This is funding all this stuff, this push towards globalism. It's a big thing to handle, but you're right in the middle of it. COVID land, five documentaries to get this information out, 5 episodes. I so much looking forward to that. And I'm glad that you told us what the topics are. Review them again, episode number 1 through 5, how we expect to have this laid out. And of course, I want you to emphasize what our obligation is to pass this information on, especially to moms and dads and grandmas that have no clue what's happening.
Right. So episode 1 goes over the lockdown, and that just basically goes over for the last year. Episode 2 is the mask. Episode 3 is the shot. Episode 4 is the propaganda. And episode 5 is the Great Reset. Now, episode 4, when I say propaganda, it goes into, how they use churches to push this on people, and how they use medical professionals and just, people in positions of authority and the news media to just cram this down our throats. And, so I think that's one of the biggest parts. But, all these episodes are really standalone movies. And, we call them episodes, but they're not really episodes. It's a full documentary film, each episode. And we tried to design them in a way where they really do stand on their own. And so, if you have a loved one that is really, is having a hard time with the mask issue, they really love the mask, just shoot them over that episode. You don't even need to shoot them over one, or the vaccine. They're going to go get the shot on Monday. Make sure you tell them, you plead with them, don't do it. And, send them over the documentary when it's done. The goal is to have these out. The first 3 episodes should be out in succession every month and a half apart, probably about a month and a half apart. And then the 4th and 5th episode, there might be like a 2-month gap in between the 3rd and the 4th episode. But we're going to try to get these all out as soon as possible. We've been working on this series since December of last year. And so basically full time, like I said, there's 4 of us working on this thing to just really try to, push it out and get it done as quick as possible and be, as accurate as possible. We have one person just working full time on just making sure that every element of this is true and accurate and factual, because, I don't want, when this is released, that, the naysayers to find this one part of the movie that, they can pick apart, and then that's what they're going to focus on. So we really tried to make sure all these episodes are completely factual and they're powerful, and I'm not trying, it's not just me that's making this. So, we have a great team of people, researching and making this. And, I definitely believe this is the most important work I've ever done. And so, we got to get this out to people. We got to wake people up to the agenda that's going on. So, I encourage your listeners, if they're listening, to go to your website, Pete, and order a copy. Support them. Get the jerky.
Yeah, we're doing something creative here, and it was inspired by, Alex Jones added his, and we've actually purchased, I think we did 100 of the end games, and we were throwing like free end games in our jerky, and people responded to it real well. So we're tying it in. We've got a great customer base of a repeat. They love our jerky. We've funded ourselves. We're actually doing the promotion where we're going to throw in 2 bags, of jerky with the purchase of the DVD. We're going to do it right here in house. But let me back up 1 second here as we start to wind down. And our audience is going to be really responsive to buying these and getting the word out. You've covered really important topics. I do want to touch on your work in Liberia, but when you're covering geoengineering, when you're covering, of course, the fluoride in the water in Michigan, and you're saying to yourself, wow, this massive effort to cover stuff up, it's on it's a small, relatively small pocket or very niche, geoengineering or Michigan water. When you look at the gravity, just the massive conspiracy that was involved in executing what they're executing with this COVID thing, are you almost overwhelmed by it? By what it actually takes to run this machine, from media to, academia to government to Silicon Valley? Massive conspiracy. They're all working in concert, aren't they?
Right. And you know what? If you think about it, you do become a little overwhelmed, but and that's why at the end of every one of these episodes, we focus on solutions, like what you can do to get out of the system, to stop going along with it. And it's important that people take off the mask, people don't get the shot. We need to encourage people to just stop with all this, because if no one stops, if no one walks into that store without the mask, then it's just going to keep going, and they're going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. If you look at Canada, what's happening in Canada right now, in Australia, New Zealand, I mean, they're out of control, but that's coming to America, guys. If we don't stand up against this now, I mean, that is our future.
They've just about, I hate to use the term, zombified everyone around us, the social pressuring that exists. And I'm pushing back with an equal and opposite force of pressure. If you want to come upon me and chase me in the store and say, sir, you need to stand on that square, you want to interfere with my life like that, I'm going to push back, with a common sense approach, saying, what are you doing? Wearing that Chinese made mask with graphene in it, and it does nothing to stop the spread of COVID. What are you doing? You need to snap out of this. So yeah, we need to resist it. We need to help educate and reverse engineer the zombification of everyone around us. I mean, they're weaponizing humans around us to get us to comply, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm really glad that you have decided to sell this. I think the 2 jerkies is just awesome. I mean, that's the best deal out there right now. I think that's a great deal for the film. And I encourages people to get a copy, get a second copy, pass it, give it to your loved ones.
Yeah.
You won't be disappointed in the film, guys. I've seen it so many times, and I still get emotional every time I see it, because it's
Paul,
what they've done to us is just, it's heart-wrenching.
Paul, it's heart-wrenching. These, I believe, are crimes against humanity. And it's not even law enforcement anymore. It's, as Christians, we have an obligation to bring the truth to our fellow human beings. Because of the deception that has existed all the way back to the Garden of Eden, we know that it exists. These are important times, and coming up with creative solutions to help us, get the word out there. It's we the people. We cannot be overpowered. I listened to somebody that was under MK Ultra and mind control. Again, somebody I've been listening to for years, Kathy O'Brien. You know what she said? She goes, one thing they could never get to was my soul. And that's how I was able to heal throughout all this. This system, the media, Silicon Valley, politicians, and all this pressure upon us. Our souls are very, very powerful. Godly souls are most important to get us out of this thing. They cannot penetrate our souls. They don't have the technology to do it, do they?
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
and we know the end game. We know what happens in the end. You know, we win. We are prevailing in the end. You know, if you are a Christian, you believe that. And so all hope is not lost, guys. And so we need to fight back and push back because we don't know when that end is. It could be way out in the future. So, you know, the best thing to do right now is just fight against this. And so I hope that this film wakes up people and begins that resistance.
my greatest hope and prayer is that everybody hearing our voice recognizes how important their role is. We're done with the days of somebody else saving us. It's up to us to save ourselves. So getting this out, Paul Wittenberger, thank you so much. We're honored. I'm so honored to have you on. We're dedicated to your work, getting the truth out and doing the best we can to save as many souls as possible. Thank you so much. Thank you.
God bless you. Have a good day.
God bless you too. Thank you. Wow. All right, you guys. So we're going to have Paul back on. I'm going to invite you back on as the series unfold, if you'll be willing to come back on in time permitting. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, all right, so here we go. Go to pistolpetesjerky.com. Use promo code COVID, okay? We'll also provide a link. You order that, you're going to get 2 free bags of jerky with your order. We're going to send it out. And most importantly, Bucket Brigade style, get the truth out about the world that we're living in right now.